to New Orleans Home Search Podcast. This is your host, Jewel Bakewell with Crown Jewel Realty, and I am super excited about today. I am hosting live on location from the Port of New Orleans. So, as you can see, there's the Crescent City Connection in the background, and this is a great scenery and ambiance to share this wonderful information today. So, thank you everyone for logging on for this valuable information. Please feel free to chime in on Facebook Live with any comments or questions that you may have. And as always, you can contact me, myself directly, or Aisha Briscoe, who is here to talk about insurance directly. So without further ado, I want to bring in our guest for today. Hi, Aisha.
Hi, Jewel. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Good. So why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about who you are?
So, my name is Aisha Briscoe. I am the owner and principal agent of Supreme Quality Insurance and Notary. I primarily write homeowners, property and casualty insurance, which includes flood, commercial insurance, and property commercial insurance. I also am a civil law notary in the state of Louisiana, so I can help with all of your notarial needs. I've been in the industry for a while now, and I've been having my agency for right around a year and a half, and I'm here to answer any questions that you have.
Congratulations for doing your own agency.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So, we're talking insurance today. What should everyone listening know about insurance right now, the state of insurance?
I think the most important thing about the state of insurance is to not let it deter you from not fulfilling your due diligence and getting it. Over the recent years and the hurricanes that we've had in the coastal region, it has caused some negative effects on insurance as a whole. And it's causing people to try to figure out how to manipulate their coverage in a way to be able to afford it. So, if I can give any advice to anyone, I would just encourage everyone to make sure they have the most value in their insurance if it's needed.
And that's a big point because a lot of times, either if you're purchasing a new home and you need that insurance quote to be low for your mortgage payment to make sense, or if you're already in a home and it's time to renew that policy, you want to make sure that if you're getting that policy down, you're not taking out major factors that are a part
Hmm.
of the policy that can hurt you if we actually do have a hurricane. Because I had a client that actually took out the roof. And this was after she purchased the property when it was time to renew because she wanted the quote to go down, and it did. However, during Ida, her roof was not covered.
And
So,
I'm sure that left her in a tough situation to have to actually come out of her pocket with those additional funds.
yes, yes. So, let's talk about what are some meat and potato things if I'm going through my insurance policy. I know that I maybe can't afford the quote I'm looking at now and I need to tweak some things. What are some things that I actually should not ever take off of my policy?
Okay, I never recommend anyone lowering their content. Um, it may come across as something small, right? It's one of those things where you figure, well, let me lower my content coverage. If needed, I can go without certain things. But as we seen with Zeta that hit the area a couple of years ago and with Ida recently last hurricane season, when you are going through a disaster, the least amount of money that you have to come out of your pocket with, the better. Because what happens is it puts you in a tough situation where you have to gauge kind of like, do I live my normal quality of life or what can I go without? And you just don't want to do that. You want to put yourself in a situation where you can replace everything you lost and you don't have to be selective. You also want to make sure you have something to assist you with temporary housing while you're waiting on your home to be rebuilt. there were a lot of people who had to look to government agencies and different type of organizations for assistance with finding somewhere to rent during the outage that we had for Ida. Those people who had that included in their policies were in a better situation than those who didn't. So you didn't have to wait for some sort of approval or some type of coverage for someone else. You can go right to your insurer, let them know the cost that you have in order to be able to find somewhere to stay while your home is being worked on or your home is not accessible and you may be displaced in another state.
That's a huge point because you don't realize the expenses involved in evacuating until you're in that situation, and it can definitely add up.
Correct. It can add up quick. Because now not only are you having to cover just the basic expenses of being displaced, like shelter, right? You're also eating out every day. You're also replacing
Yeah.
just your basic needs that already exist in your home, your hygiene items, your just daily activities. And especially if you have kids, now you have to keep the kids busy and you're in this foreign place and you're spending money every day. And before you know it, you've spent thousands of dollars while you're away from home. And now you have to get home and start the rebuilding process. So anytime you can lower your costs, my thing is just get the best coverage that you can get and get fully covered.
Yes, I call it the nightmare vacation.
I call it the forced vacation. It's not fun at all. It's definitely not
It's not.
margaritas and sunshine.
It is not. Okay. Because you never know what you're coming back to.
Yes, and you don't know how long you're going to be gone. It's one thing for us to assume because we get those hard storms, right? We live in New Orleans. We all are
Yeah.
out of Interstate 10. You get those hurricane warnings that'll make you run, right? And nothing happens. Then you get those that make you stay and everything happens, right? We've all experienced it, but it's like you leave your house and you think, "Oh, I'm going to be gone for 3 days. I can handle 3 days." But then that'll be the time that that storm takes your roof off or takes the side of your house off and now you're gone for 14 days. So where it's easy to cover the expenses of a long weekend, it's a whole nother can of worms when you're trying to cover the expenses of being away from your home for 2 weeks
It
and you're not
is.
working. That's the other side of it. We all have different access to funds. But if you're displaced, more than likely you're not, you may be without of a job. And if you don't have the resources of the employer that'll keep paying you while you're away, it just can create a equation that you want to avoid it as much as you can.
So, for realtors, for brokers, our main issue for years since Katrina has been flood insurance.
Yes.
And the change in policies with flood insurance and the high quotes that affect the value of homes. But now we're starting to see those same issues with homeowners insurance. So, can you speak to what are some advice or some tips that you can give to us realtors and brokers who are trying to navigate with our clients to get them into homes with the challenge of homeowners and flood insurance being outrageous these days?
For you guys, I think an industry standard is to make sure you're being completely upfront with that homeowner or potential homeowner in the beginning of the process, and make sure that they're communicating with their loan officers when they are establishing the amount of money they have to work with when looking for a house. One of the most devastating things can be someone going through the homeowners process, getting all the way to the point where they've selected their dream home, but they're not able to get into it because they didn't account for the insurance rates. Flood insurance, we all know, is that thing that typically you have to pay for upfront. So they need to be able to cover that cost. And also, you want them to understand the areas they're looking at. Look at the average for insurance prices. If you have an independent broker, get that broker to run you a quote or ask that broker for the average in this particular area so that the homeowner will know upfront okay, when I'm looking for a home, this is what I need to consider for flood, and this is what I need to consider from homeowners, so that they would be able to understand how to calculate their funds.
That makes a lot of sense. So, what are some areas in the city where you've seen pretty reasonable quotes that maybe people should consider?
There have not been a lot of reasonable quotes in the area, unfortunately. And I just have to be honest. I cannot give
Yeah.
any inaccurate information. I've seen increases on average all throughout the city, whether it's the Gentilly area, the New Orleans East area, whether it's West Bank, Orleans Parish, or Jefferson. I've seen increases all around, especially in the river parishes, St. Charles, St. John, all of them. They've all seen consistent increases. So right now in the city, I can't even say which area has the best rates because everybody's going up, and it can be something that can differ from two streets over. It hasn't been just the most consistent gauge to sit here and say, oh, one area is better than the other. Even northern Louisiana is experiencing increases because of the way the storms travel, right? So it just doesn't affect us coastally. When you look at that path that storm carries and goes up Louisiana and it goes through Coshada and it goes through Shreveport, it hits all of those places, they all are experiencing the same thing.
So, we in New Orleans are not in this alone.
No, we are not. We have
We're
brothers and
not in this
sisters
alone.
up north. Even though, us New Orleans people, we like to think we in a state of our own, but
Yeah,
they going through it too. They're going through it too. I've
exactly.
seen, like, when you go west of I-12, those rural parishes haven't had too much of an increase, but that's not our market, right? That's not, we love being in the city. So right now in the city, everywhere is seeing the same thing.
So, I would like to ask, what are some tips that you would give homeowners during hurricane season? Because technically, we're in hurricane season right now.
Yes,
So, what are some
officially.
tips and maybe what are some questions that they should be asking their insurance agents during this time to prepare and to just to make sure everything is in order should they need to evacuate or file a claim?
So the first tip that I always give is make sure you have all of your policy documents accessible, right? So when you get to that time where it's like, okay, we getting to the point where we're going to have these named storms coming at us, make sure you have a few things accessible. Make sure you have the ability to contact your agent or your insurance company. Make sure you have your policy documents. Make sure you have phone numbers to everybody, your flood insurance, your homeowner's insurance, anyone that can assist you when it comes to processing a claim. Pull that out first. Put that in that folder that everybody has with all your important documents, your birth certificate, social security card. Get all that and keep that together so that any event of a disaster, you will be able to access the people you need to be able to make the process a little bit easier. One of the other things that I always recommend is take a little look at your deductibles, right? For your homeowners, for your wind and hail, for your flood. Take a look at all of those. And if you can, put yourself in a situation where that money is set to the side so that you have it saved, even though it's going to come out of the claim and that'll all kind of set itself off. I just suggest you have it in a savings so that if you need to backfill everything, you have access to funds to be able to do so.
Great. So, thank you so much for all this helpful information today, Aisha. Did we leave anything out?
No, the only other thing that I would a lot of times people don't take a look at their policy until it's time for them to need the policy, right? So I suggest that homeowners look at their policy often, call your insurer, see if you can get better quotes. Don't just treat the insurance as a thing that you have and just never revisit it again. Just take it. Always make sure you're keeping yourself knowledgeable on changes that come out, increases, just making sure that you have what you need. In the current state, you see a lot of people complaining about increases, but they didn't read the documents to notify them that there would be increases. So just make sure you're just keeping yourself educated on the things that you're paying for. Also, in the event of a storm, just make sure you're taking pictures, make sure you're documenting everything, make sure you have everything you need with you so that that don't add to the headaches that we may experience because of a hurricane or any type of disaster.
Yes, that was a big thing before I left for Ida. I took pictures all over the house, just and they really came in helpful when it was time to make the claims because I was able to say, hey, this was my house before this happened.
Hmm.
Obviously, these damages are from the storm.
That's good. And the key thing you said is that you did it before, right? So it's
Yes.
like you don't, your insurance company can't come to you and say, Jewel, no, that them four shingles was like that prior to. No, you have the proof, timed and dated and stamped, so that if you need to make an argument or you can use it as a point of reference and a guide to be able to go to your insurance and say, okay, this is the state of my home before this hurricane. So I want to make sure we restore it in the most, the most efficient way, the proper way, instead of possibly having to go back and forth with it. And I also encourage people to use their agents like a tool. They're not just here in order to get you a policy. They work with you. Let them know when you're having a difficult time. Let them know when you have questions. They can answer those questions for you. And especially with independent agents, if you're not happy with the insurer, you go to your independent agent, you let them know, and then they'll be the ones to kind of advocate on your behalf or do what the necessary work to find you someone you're happy with.
Yes, so that's a big point. You're not stuck with the company. You can talk to your agent and figure out other ways to make it work for you.
Absolutely.
The other thing is, I hear a lot of people say, I didn't know that. Oh, I didn't know that. Read. Reading is fundamental. It is not the sexiest thing to read, but it's necessary because anytime I'm reading things like that, questions come up. I'm like, wait, I didn't consider this. Do I need this? Why? What's so I know what to expect. I know what's there and I know what's not there.
Hmm.
So I think that's a big thing. We look at it and we're like, yeah, I talked to my agent. I understand what my agent said, but that's fine. You still want to do your due diligence and read over everything as well.
Right.
Because, we're all human. Your agent could have done a great job at explaining it to you, and maybe you needed to read it to yourself to reaffirm what's going on, or maybe they left something out that didn't matter at the time, but when the storm happens, now it is relevant and it does matter. So I just want to point that out. I know it's not the funnest thing to do, but it's very necessary.
Yes, it is. It's absolutely necessary. I'm a fine print reader. I love to read, but I don't like to read that fine print disclaimer stuff. But when it comes to insurance, when it comes to policy and procedure, I read it because I don't want anything to shock me when I need to use this policy. I don't want anything to come out of left field when I need to use it. And just as much as your agent may, advocate on your behalf, sometimes there's changes after you get the plan. Sometimes you get notifications or addendums and things that come in the mail to you, and your agent don't even know that that could have possibly been sent to you, let alone be able to, direct you in the right way or re-explain it to you. Because the truth is, a lot of times those fine print words, like you said, it's not the sexiest thing, and sometimes it's a little difficult to understand with all the legalness of it all. But do not hesitate to ask questions. You should be able to call somebody, whether it's at the agency or your agent or the insurer, and they should be able to say, okay, let me break this down for you. So you'll know what to expect. You do not want to be blindsided in the event of a disaster. It's not the time for it. Like, I am a strong believer in the less stress we have to deal with during that time, the better. We all were hot during Ida. Like, Ida didn't discriminate. We all didn't have, power, and some of us were out water, some longer than the others. But if you had the necessary resources and you had different kind of coverages, you were able to put yourself in a better situation without having to wait on anybody else. And you can call the insurance when you know the policy and say, hey, Wasn't I supposed to get rental assistance? Wasn't I supposed to get loss of use? My contents equal this, but I only received this. When you know, it makes it harder for anyone to just tell you anything. So that's the best.
Yes. Yes, that was a word right there. Because you're not asking the question, you're telling me this is what it is, and I didn't receive that. So it
Right.
definitely puts you in a better position when going up against the insurance companies, which is not the easiest thing to do at times.
Yeah, it's not. We all see the claims now. The billboards with the attorneys that are filing cases and different things that are happening in order to assist people. You know, some people not in a good place, right? They still haven't received everything they needed from Ida, and here we are going into a whole nother hurricane season. So that's the people I worry about the most, like those who may have homes, that are already exposed. You know, if you have something that's damaged, you have something, right now is the time for you to cover it up, even if secure it, do what you need to do. When that storm is coming, anything that you can do to make sure your house is covered, the better. You know, move those plants out the way. Move any debris or anything out of your yard. Get things out of the way that could potentially damage your home even worse than it may be while you're still, you know, fighting a good fight trying to get things repaired.
Yes, and if anybody has any questions, definitely come on in while we have Aisha on so she can share her knowledge on this, because you shared a lot. But I want to also talk about the notary aspect of what you do. Can you share more about that?
Sure. So I am a civil law notary and I have the ability to stamp things, right? That's fun. I actually like the whole act of just like hitting that stamp.
Yeah.
I have no idea why that gives me such fulfillment. But I can handle different things when it comes to affidavits, acknowledgments, transfers. I can do acts of paternity, witness signatures. In Louisiana, there's a pretty long list of a lot of things that notaries can do for you. We can assist in pretty much anything before you go to, you know, an attorney and the fee may look a little different. We can help with
Yes.
wills. We can do things in order to help set up businesses. There's just it's a nonstop list of things that we can do to help you. And if you have a question or concern, just call me, DM me, and say, hey, is this something that you could do? Is this something that you can help with before you have to, you know, reach out to other resources to do it?
Yeah, and that's a huge point, and it's a difference that we have in Louisiana than every other state. You can do a lot of attorney activities here with a notary license
Yeah.
in the state of Louisiana. So, and I don't think a lot of people know that that's available to them.
They don't know, and it's the funny thing is also like with Louisiana, I actually, as much as I love to hit the stamp, I don't have to even stamp anything. My signature is enough to notarize and witness any notarial act, because Louisiana doesn't require you to have that stamp, and also it's not done per parish. So although my license and my commission is attached to Orleans Parish and Jefferson, I'm licensed within the whole state and it's for the duration of my lifetime. So once you go through that notarial process, you have it forever. You just have to keep yourself refreshed on all of the new things that happen. Now we have the ability in Louisiana to do remote notary, and that just changed the whole possibilities of things that we can do to assist people.
Yes, because you can also close anywhere. So you can come
Hmm.
close me right here at the port in my car.
Yeah, I know, right? Remotely, just say like stamps. Yep, it's
Yes.
it's fun to watch how times change, and you're able to get different abilities, and it doesn't put you within a box of just having
Mhm.
to limit the things that you do. So it's great. It's we living in a great time. We definitely
We
are.
are. We are. So if anybody has any questions about notary services, or you believe you may need some help with notary services, contact Aisha. She'd be happy to help you, and
Yes.
also with insurance. So thank you so much, all of our listeners, for coming on. I really hope that you got some valuable information. I wanted to talk about insurance because it is definitely something that we deal with every day in the real estate industry, and it's something that needs to be addressed often. And I would like for it to be tips on this show, not only for people wanting to buy a property, but that have already purchased the property, because the education does not stop once you purchase. So thank you everyone for logging on to New Orleans Home Search Podcast. Catch us every first and third Thursday on urbansmartnetwork.com. Peace.
Thank you, Jewel.